Hey guys, Aaron Johnson here from River Valley Worship. I wanted to make a little video here showing you guys how I set up my trigger pad for use in Ableton. I get asked about this quite a bit, and so I thought I'd just show you guys how I do it, the workflow I've kind of come up with. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody out there. So the main issue that I wanted to figure out with my trigger pad is I wanted it not just to play samples. So I wasn't going to use it just as like loading samples in and playing the samples back through the outputs on the back of the trigger pad. I wanted to actually use it to control Ableton. So I wanted to use it more of a MIDI controller. So the issue that immediately kind of comes up with is the MIDI notes that are coming out of the trigger pad on every bank on the trigger pad are all by default set to the same message. And so if you don't do anything different, you only have 9 messages to send out of this trigger pad to Ableton. And then that gets pretty limiting, because if you're playing samples on a few songs, there could be 3 or 4 or 5 samples there. If you're wanting to launch certain clips, if you're wanting to stop Ableton or play Ableton, you run out of MIDI messages really, really quickly. So the first thing that you have to figure out is how you want to use the trigger pad in Ableton. So for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to play samples. I wanted to be able to map MIDI messages to certain scenes or clips, and I wanted a master stop on my trigger pad in case something goes crazy. I can actually stop everything and it will cut all the tracks. So I know that I've seen people have the up and the down arrows that are global messages that are happening in Ableton. I wasn't going to do that, and I'll explain why I decided not to do that later. But that's what I want to do. I wanted a stop button, and then I wanted basically a free range of options to do whatever I want in Ableton using the trigger pad. So I'm using an SPD-SX. By default, when you take it out of the box, banks 1 through 16 are labeled with certain titles that came from Roland. I started my system here on bank 17. That's where it's the first time it said new kit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you first what I do to set up the MIDI messages to be different on every single bank except for one pad, so that's my stop pad. So I'll show you what that looks like right here. Okay, so here we are. Here's my trigger pad. I'm on bank 17. I want to kind of show you how I did all my setup here. So the first thing that you need to do, obviously, is you need to be connected via a USB cable or MIDI cables or whatever. I'm connected USB to my computer. Let's go into menu. The first thing you need to do here is go to setup and go down to option. You have padlock, auto off, and USB mode. In this USB mode, the settings should be set to audio MIDI, not Wave Manager. Wave Manager is a software that comes with the trigger pad. That's for loading samples that are on your computer to the trigger pad. So if it's set to Wave Manager there, when you're connected to your computer, the Wave Manager software will pop up and you can drag your samples. So I want it to be on audio MIDI. Secondly, I'm still in my setup tab. I'm going to go to MIDI here, select that. This should be set up like this. I want local control off, I want soft through off, and I want USB MIDI interface on. I'm going to leave that one on. Let's get out of that now. Okay, so now bank 17. Here's how you change your MIDI notes that are set to the pads here. Go into menu, go to kit, and there's a common, output, and a MIDI tab. So in the MIDI tab here, you can see what pad you're selected. I can move my arrows and I can find what pad I'm on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and I'm going to make all these different. I'm going to go, this pad right here is going to be set to MIDI note 0. Next one over is going to be 1. The next one over is going to be 2. If I go up a row, I'm gonna leave 3 empty, and I'll explain why in a second. This one is set to 4. So now I'm here. This is 4. This is 5. This is 6. I'm gonna leave 7 empty. Here's 8. Here's 9. And here's 10. So I have 10 notes, even though I'm skipping 3 and 7. I'm skipping 3 and 7. And again, I'll explain why in a second. So that is my pad, or my bank 17. Now, if I go to bank 18 now, so I'm going to go up to bank 18 and go menu, open that kit. I'm going to go in here. I have now 12, 13, and then I have 2 again. The reason why I'm going to put 2 always here, because I want that to be my master stop. So I need that no matter what bank I'm on. I need that pad to have that same message, because I'm going to map that note to my stop button in Ableton. And then I go, so 12, 13, it would be 14. I'm skipping 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm going to skip 19. This is 20 up here, 21, 22. Hopefully you can see that okay. But, so that's what I do. And I do that for every single bank all the way up to, I think, 26. Let's see what I have going on in here. In this kit, I have MIDI notes. I have 108, 109, 2, 112, 13, 14, skip 15, 116, 117, 118. So you have 127 MIDI notes. So I could go up one more, I think. But I've done 10 banks, and that is plenty for what I'm doing in my trigger pad. So again, every single bank I have, my bottom right, this is just what I chose, you could choose something else, but the bottom right is going to be MIDI message 2, and then every single thing, every other page is going to have a new set of MIDI notes for that bank. So once we get Ableton set up the way that we want, or I mean, sorry, the trigger pad set up the way we want, then we can do what we want in Ableton. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to start with creating a bunch of drum racks that have placeholder samples to put samples in to the corresponding messages on my trigger pad. So I'm going to go open my browser right here. I'm going to go grab in my drums category, I'm going to grab a drum rack and bring that in. So here's a drum rack. And then here's how a drum rack works if you're unfamiliar with it. You have basically an entire piano roll on the left here, and then you have 4 pads in groups of here. So I have a dark gray row right here, and then a light gray. This is a new page, new page, new page, all the way up. So these are the 127 MIDI notes that are available to us. So I'm going to start at the bottom. This C minus 2 is the same as 0 on the trigger pad. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab just a generic sample. I'm going to go to drum hits. Let's just grab this real clap 4 right here. I'm going to drag that right there. Now, this is just a preference for me, and this is why I was skipping a couple of the messages on the trigger pad when I was setting it up that way. I want this to look like the trigger pad layout because it really helps when you're working on the fly. It helps to be able to see what you're seeing on the trigger pad. So I'm going to hold Option and I'm going to drag this over like this. And this is now what my trigger pad looks like on bank 17. I'm leaving, this is 0, 1, here is 2. So 2, I'm going to map to my stop button up here and over here to stop all clips. So I'm going to leave that one empty. That's not going to have a sample. But then all these others are going to be set up to play that sample when I hit that pad on the trigger pad. Okay, so I'm going to label this drum rack. I'm going to label it bank 17. There you go. It changed bank 17 up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to label this bank 18 up here. Oops. Bank 18. I'm going to go here, change this to bank 18. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new row of samples. So what I'm going to do, I want to go to this row now. So this is my bank 18 slots. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to delete these. And then let's kind of scroll up the page right here. Copy. I'm holding Command again and just dragging. I want to delete this one because remember that's going to be my 2 spot. And then I want to go like this, copy, go up a row. It's kind of weird how it does this, but that works like that. There you go. So now here's my bank 18 messages. If you hover over it, it says what it is. It says C, if you can see on the bottom left of my screen there, it says C -1. This is C# -1. D -1, I'm going to leave that empty. And then here's, so this is my bank 18 trigger pad. Let's duplicate that. Change this to bank 19. Oops, I keep doing that. Bank 19. Change this to bank 19. And then I'm going to do this. Bring these up a row. I'm going to leave that empty. Bring this. Just copy this over. Delete these. Do this. And then let me delete all these other ones. This is from before. So now, there you go. I have 3 banks up here, bank 17, bank 18, bank 19. They all have placeholder samples in there. Now what I do, let me go back to bank 17. I just mute these because these are just placeholders. I don't actually want those samples to be played. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to verify that these are receiving the right messages from the trigger pad. So I'm going to go over to my trigger pad here and go to bank 17. So I'm on bank 17. Now, how do you get the trigger pad to communicate the right way? So you need to choose where the MIDI messages are coming from. So right here, I'm going to drop down and I'm going to choose SPDSX. It pops up because I'm connected via USB. And then I'm going to turn my monitoring should be set to in. Auto means that it's only going to receive the messages if I'm record enabled, which you wouldn't want to do for this. And if you have it off, it will never go in. But you want it to be set to in. It gives you a little piano symbol here, meaning that it's going to receive messages from the SPDSX on all channels. That's fine. So I can go ahead now and hit my bottom left trigger pad. And you can see down here that it's going to play that sample. Okay? If I hit my middle bottom pad, it's playing that sample. And maybe I should just turn these back on so we can hear them. So I'm just verifying that all these are right. Now, my bottom right, that's going to be my stop button. If I hit that, it selects that bank, which is cool. That's good, but I don't have a sample there. Let me go to my next row. There you go. I'm playing that one. Now this one. Now this one. Same thing here. Let me just double check all this. Yep. There you go. And there you go. So that is set up exactly how I want it to be. Great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this device, this bank 17, into a spot on my computer. So I'm going to open up my user library, give myself a new folder. I'm going to label this drum pads. And then I'm going to save bank 17 into that. So now let me go to bank 18 over here. It saves as an Ableton device, which is really great. Let's go to bank 18 over here. Let me see what's going on with this. I'm going to switch to bank 18 on my trigger pad. These messages should line up. Let's just double check. Bottom left. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry, I have to have, remember, this needs to be set to in. SPDSX. Now look at this. Both of these are set to in, but now I'm on a different page. Different messages will go. There you go. I'm doing that one. Middle one. 2 is gonna be not on this page because 2 is empty. Let's go here. There's that one. There's that one. There's that one. And there you go. That all works. So bank 18 is good. I'm going to save that in my drum pads thing. Drum pads folder. There you go. And then I won't do it right now, but 18 would work as well. And you could just verify that those messages are set up the right way. Now, what's so cool is I still have that bottom right to map. So what I can do is go to my MIDI routing or MIDI mapping here. And I'm going to choose my square right here. And that's going to be the bottom left. And I'm going to do this one as well. So now, wherever I am, whatever bank I'm in, because I always put that one as number 2, it's going to flash all the stop clips, and it's also going to stop playback. If playback was going, I'm going to stop the playback, and it stops that. So that's great. So let's say that I wanted to play the song Chain Reaction. It's off the latest River Valley record that came out a million lifetimes. I'm going to play Chain Reaction, and I want to use the samples. So what I would do, let me delete these. What I would do is open my browser. I'm going to drag in bank 17. There it is. Here's all my presets, my blanks, or my placeholders. I'm going to go to my computer, wherever my samples are. Let me see if I can find them. They are right here. Chain Reaction. I'm going to bring in, let's see. Let's do this clap. And I'm just going to drag these down. Oh, it's thinking. I'm reading it from the hard drive. All right, clap. There's that. Kick. I'm not going to use that one right now. Let me do the rim. Let me bring this snare in. This snare too. I could bring this sonar in. And maybe this verb clap. I'm not going to use these two. Turn these off. Mute those. Now, if I'm on bank 17 on my trigger pad, there's that. There's all those samples. Let's see this one. Cool. That all works great. So now that I've loaded in the samples, one other thing that you might need to do when you bring in samples, you would only need to do this one time, but when you bring in samples, it comes in at volume velocity over here at 45%. You probably want to bring that down to 0. That means it'll play the same volume no matter how hard you hit the pad. That usually works great for these type of samples, but you can adjust that however you would need to. The clap is obviously quieter now, but you can bring up the individual volume of each sample you want right here. So maybe -4 or 0, whatever. So you could continue doing that across all the samples to get them the way that you want them. And then what I would do is go into here and change this to say Chain Reaction bank 17, and then save that. Not there. Go to your user library, my drum pads folder, save that entire thing. Now, I know that when I want to play Chain Reaction, all I need to do is go to this spot, drag this down. It tells me what bank my trigger pad needs to be on, and then I'm set to go. Very, very cool. Very cool. So in my session, my normal weekend session, I have a group folder here that has all my banks in a row. Like bank 17 all the way up to bank 26. And then I can just collapse that nice and clean. And then I have, more than enough places to put samples on. Very cool. Now, let's do this. One thing that I kind of need to overcome here is I didn't want to have to spend a lot of time scrolling through my trigger pad banks to get to where I needed to be. So you can do something very cool here called a program change. So I am going to create a new MIDI track over here, MIDI track. I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to label it, Command R if you don't know that. Program change. Let's do that. PGM change. Great. Now, I'm going to create a little MIDI clip. And by default, it opens up 1 bar of time looping. I don't need this to loop. I just need to put what bank I want to go to right here. So I'm going to put bank 17 right there. Once I do that, I need to tell them where the MIDI is going to go to. So I want to choose well, actually we should talk about this. This is good. I want that MIDI to go, but I don't have a choice for that now, so I need to configure this. I need the output of my SPDSX to be on the track output. So now SPDSX is enabled. I know that the Roland trigger pad operates or communicates on channel 10, so I'm going to go down to channel 10 right here. Now, I'm also going to label this 17 up here so I know what I'm dealing with. You can't see this right now, but on my trigger pad it says bank 20 right now. I just changed it. Once I launch this button, it's going to send the message out this output, and it's going to change it to bank 17, and it did. So what I do is just create a bunch of these with different with what I need. So I'm going to drop this down. Let's change it to 18. You can't just change it there. You have to change it in this. So program 18. Let's copy and paste it. This is going to be 19. This is going to go to 19 here. And so on. I would go all the way up to 26 or however many you have. Now, I just line these up with the song. So let me go back to my stems here, and I want to bring in the actual song, Chain Reaction. I want to show you exactly what I do here. Here's my stems. Right here. Chain Reaction. Okay, so click all this stuff. I'm going to bring all this in. Here's a little trick. Hold Command and drag it over to a row here, and it will put it all in horizontally and not vertically. It really is great. Okay, so here is my bank 17 right here, trigger pad setup. Let me actually just write bank 17. So I'm going to put bank 17 right there. Here's all my stems for that song. Let's see what it sounds like.
Chain Reaction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Verse.
Very cool. That's all there. Now, because I put the program change 17 in there, whenever I launch that song over here, so I would do this, I'd write Chain Reaction 128 BPM like that. And this is my launch of the song. I could make it nice and clean by grouping all these together. There you go, that's all the stems in there. I want my bank 17. Oh, sorry, it's right here. Chain Reaction bank 17. I want that to be in. Let's make sure the samples work. There you go. Let's pretend I'm on bank 19. I'm going to launch the song, and it's going to switch to 17 automatically.
Chain Reaction.
Now,
1, 2,
my samples work.
4.
So I can play along, and those samples work. Now, how this works is I can map any of these to do anything else. Like, let's say I wanted a different section of the song. Like, let's just imagine that I had all this down here, and I wanted to launch this. Any pad that I'm not using to play samples, I can map to this if this is a section of the song. So if I do my Command M, choose that. Let me stop it. Choose that. I'm going to go my top right here. 1 second. Top right. Now that message is being assigned to that. So I still have my samples, and I can launch that section of the song right there.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And then my bottom right can stop it all. So here's how this works. Anything that you're using the trigger pad for to trigger globally, like a scene launch or a clip or a stop, that overrides any mapping to a drum rack. So if I tried to map something in this bank 17 to my bottom left, which right now is that sound. I'll do it right now, actually. Let's go in here, delete this. I'm gonna map this now to the bottom left. Now, it won't play the sample, it'll play
chain reaction.
That. So, you just gotta, what's really cool about that is like if you don't have any samples, then all those messages are free to do whatever you want with. So I think that is it for right now in terms of explaining kind of how I do this. I set up a new bank for every song. So now if I had a song 2 right here, I might make it go to bank 18. Even if I'm not playing samples, I would send it to bank 18 just so I have free 9 new pads to like launch clips or launch loops or do something else with. And all that will work. So I hope that helps. I just kind of stumbled across this. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. The one thing with Ableton is there's never a right or wrong way, which is really cool actually. You kind of do what you want with it. But for me, for my workflow, this seems to work so efficient. I love that I can save all my presets in my user library here, drum pads. I have generic ones if I have new songs that I'm doing, and then I have songs that I've already set up the right samples to be in the right spots, and I can just save that and drag that in at any time. Go ahead, feel free to leave a comment. I love to answer any questions you have out there. I'm sure there's other stuff that can be done, but that's how I do it. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.